They say your home is your castle, but for me, that castle turned into a cardboard box in the back of my son's SUV. I'll never forget the silence on that drive. It wasn't a peaceful silence, it was the kind that's heavy, thick, and straight up suffocating. My son, the boy I taught to ride a bike, the kid I coached in Little League, wouldn't even look me in the eye. He just gripped the steering wheel like he was trying to choke it, staring at the road as if the GPS was leading us to a funeral. When we pulled up to the senior living center, he didn't call it an old age home. He used all those corporate, polished words. He called it a vibrant community and a better fit for my needs. But we both knew the truth. I had become a burden. I was weak, I was slow, and I was low-key being erased from the family tree before I was even in the ground. He helped me carry my 2 suitcases into room 4B. I watched him look at his watch, clearly anxious to get back to his real life. When he finally hugged me goodbye, it felt like a polite tap on the shoulder from a stranger. The door clicked shut, and I was alone. I sat on that twin bed, listening to the hum of the industrial air conditioner and the muffled sound of a television down the hall. The room smelled like lemon bleach and old memories. I felt my spirit straight up break. I looked at my hands. They were thin, shaky, and lacked the grip I once took for granted. In that moment, I felt invisible. I felt like a glitch in the system that had finally been patched out. I was a man who had built a career, raised a family, and lived a full life, but now I was just a room number. I was finished. But as I sat there in the dim light, staring at my reflection in the tiny bathroom mirror, a spark of pure, unadulterated anger started to flicker. I realized I had 2 choices. I could sit in that vinyl chair and wait for the end, or I could start the most legendary comeback arc this facility had ever seen. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain on how that betrayal became my fuel. I'm going to show you how I went from a frail man who couldn't lift his own suitcase to the strongest version of myself I've ever been. If you've ever felt like the world was moving on without you, or if you felt that sting of being sidelined, hit that subscribe button right now. We are rewriting the rules of aging together. Comment "Reborn" below if you're ready to reclaim your main character energy. How did I get here? It didn't happen overnight. It wasn't like I woke up one morning and suddenly couldn't walk. No, the loss of my independence was a slow, sneaky erosion, death by 1,000 cuts that I just low-key ignored for years. I call it the retirement trap. It starts with a simple thought: I've worked hard my whole life, I deserve to just relax. So, I stopped lifting heavy things because I didn't want my joints to hurt. I stopped taking the stairs because the elevator was smarter. I let my world shrink until it was just my recliner, my remote, and my kitchen. I didn't realize it at the time, but my body was literally dismantling itself. Without the signal of hard work, my brain decided my muscle was an unnecessary expense. This is the medical reality of sarcopenia. My muscle fibers were thinning out, being replaced by marbled fat. I was becoming a soft version of the man I used to be. My son saw the glitches way before I did. He saw the way I had to use both hands and a grunt just to get off the sofa. He saw the way I'd hesitate at a curb, worried about my balance. He saw me struggle with a simple jar of pickles until my face turned red. In his eyes, I was becoming fragile. And in our society, once you're labeled as fragile, people start treating you like you're made of glass. He wasn't trying to be a villain when he packed my bags. He was acting out of fear. He looked at me and didn't see a father, he saw a 911 call waiting to happen. He saw a fall that would end in a broken hip and a long, painful decline. But sitting in room 4B, I realized that my safety was actually a prison. By trying to protect me from life, he and I had accidentally invited death in a little early. I had let my physical armor melt away, and without that armor, I had no defense against the world. I looked at the other residents in the hallway, shuffling along with their walkers, their eyes fixed on the floor, and I saw my future. It was a total vibe kill. I realized that if I stayed in that recliner, I was agreeing with my son. I was admitting that I was finished. But looking at my trembling hands, I felt a surge of defiance. I wasn't just losing muscle, I was losing my main character energy. I decided right then that if I was going to go down, I was going to go down swinging, literally. The first week in the facility was a total system crash. I spent most of it just staring at the wall, listening to the chime of the nurse's station and the squeak of rubber soles on linoleum. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. I realized that if I didn't move, and move fast, I'd be one of those people in the hallway, low-key waiting for the end. I checked out the fitness center. It was a joke. A couple of plastic pedals bolted to a chair and some colorful stretchy bands that had about as much resistance as a rubber band on a deck of cards. It was safe. It was age-appropriate. It was exactly what was keeping everyone in their week. I walked back to room 4B, shut the door, and realized, if I'm going to get out of here, I have to turn this 10 by 10 space into a Black Ops training camp. I started the next morning at 5 a.m. The facility was dead quiet. I didn't have a gym, so I had to be an engineer. I took my old leather suitcase, the one my son packed my life into, and stuffed it with every heavy book and bottled water I could find. That became my kettlebell. I stood in the center of the room and did rows until my back felt like it was finally waking up from a decade-long nap. Then came the chair squats. I'd stand in front of that hard, wooden desk chair. I'd sit back slowly, hovering just an inch above the seat, feeling my quads tremble and my heart hammer against my ribs like a trapped bird. My body was straight up buffering. It was screaming at me, "What are you doing? We're retired. We're supposed to be resting." But I pushed through the glitch. I did push-ups against the edge of the heavy oak dresser. I used the doorframe for rows. I was sweating in the dark, gasping for air, while the rest of the building slept. Every morning was a battle against my own mind. That nagging voice kept telling me, "You're 68, you're in a home, just give up." But every rep was a no to that voice. Every drop of sweat was a middle finger to the idea that I was fragile. I started tracking my progress on the back of a facility menu. 10 squats turned into 20. 5 push-ups turned into 15. I was sending a high-voltage signal to my nervous system, we are still in the fight. I wasn't just building muscle, I was building a new identity. I was moving from a patient back to powerhouse. I could feel the main character energy returning, one painful, secret rep at a time. While I was training my body in the dark, I spent my days training my mind in the facility's small, quiet library. I needed to understand why my body had failed me and how to force it to rebuild. I spent hours on the facility's slow Wi-Fi, digging through medical journals and research papers. That's when I realized the old age narrative was a total scam. I learned that the human body doesn't have an expiration date for growth, it only has a disuse policy. If you don't use it, you lose it. But if you challenge it, your body, even at 70, is still a biological machine capable of massive adaptation. I discovered the concept of anabolic resistance. As we age, our bodies become deaf to the signals of growth. To get the muscles to respond, I had to turn the volume up. I needed more intensity in my workouts and, more importantly, I needed to hack my nutrition. The facility food was a major vibe kill. It was designed for maintenance, not for a comeback. It was heavy on mushy carbs, mashed potatoes, white bread, sugary puddings, and light on the one thing I desperately needed, protein. I knew that if I wanted to rebuild the armor I'd lost, I needed the raw materials. I had to become a nutrition ninja. In the dining hall, I started making trades. I'd give away my dessert or my extra roll to anyone who would give me their hard-boiled egg or their piece of chicken. I became the guy who sat in the corner, double-stacking turkey slices and Greek yogurt. I learned about leucine, the specific amino acid that acts like a light switch for muscle growth. I realized I needed at least 30 grams of protein at every meal to trigger that switch. So, I started buying protein powder with a little bit of spending money my son sent me. I'd mix it into my morning oatmeal or drink it in secret in my room after my 5 a.m. workouts. The staff just thought I was a picky eater. They had no idea I was low-key optimizing my biology. Slowly, the science started to manifest in reality. The brain fog that had followed me for years began to lift. My focus sharpened. My skin started to look better. I wasn't just staying busy, I was reversing the clock. I was proving that the metabolic meltdown of aging isn't an inevitability, it's a choice. I was no longer just a resident of room 4B, I was a living, breathing experiment in human resilience. Strength is contagious. You can't keep a transformation like that hidden forever. Eventually, the walls of room 4B couldn't contain the energy I was building. People started noticing the way I walked to the dining hall. I wasn't shuffling anymore, I was striding. I wasn't using the handrails in the hallway, I was moving with purpose. It started with Frank. Frank was 82, a retired mechanic who spent most of his days sitting in a lawn chair in the courtyard, staring at the fence. One morning, he caught me doing walking lunges near the rose bushes. He looked at me, squinted through his thick glasses, and said, "You're gonna kill yourself, kid. Or at the very least, you're gonna pop a hip." I laughed, wiped the sweat from my forehead, and said, "Frank, I was already dead sitting in that recliner. I'm just trying to see if I can spark a little life back into these old wires." I showed him a simple chair squat. I explained the science I'd been reading, how his legs were the foundation of his independence. I told him, if you can't get off the toilet by yourself, Frank, they own you. If you can, you're still a free man. That hit him hard. The next morning, at 6 a.m., Frank was waiting for me. Within 2 weeks, our duo turned into a squad. Martha joined us, she was tired of feeling fragile. Then came George, who wanted to be able to lift his suitcase when his daughter visited. We turned that quiet, depressing courtyard into an underground training ground. We used gallon jugs of water as dumbbells. We used the park benches for step-ups. We were a group of forgotten people reclaiming our main character energy. But the system didn't like it. One afternoon, the head nurse and the facility director marched out to the courtyard. They looked at us like we were losing our minds. "This is a liability," the director said, his clipboard shaking. "You're going to fall. You need to go back inside and participate in the scheduled chair yoga or the knitting circle. This is not safe for people your age." I stood up straight, feeling the power in my legs that hadn't been there 3 months ago. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "What's a bigger liability? Us getting stronger, or you letting our hearts and muscles rot while we wait for the next bingo game? We aren't patients, and we aren't children. We are men and women who refuse to be sidelined." The courtyard went dead silent. Frank and Martha stood up behind me. It was a total standoff. The director looked at our faces, the sweat, the determination, the literal life returning to our eyes, and he didn't have an answer. They didn't shut us down. In fact, more people started showing up. We weren't just a fitness class, we were a resistance movement. We were proving that the old age home didn't have to be a waiting room for the end, it could be the place where you finally found your strength. Then came the day I had been training for. The day my son was scheduled to visit. In the past, these visits followed a depressing script. He would walk in, looking at his phone, his face tight with a mix of guilt and pity. I would be sitting in that same vinyl chair, dressed in something loose and comfortable, and we would talk about the weather or the bland food for 20 minutes before he made an excuse to leave. I was the burden he had to check on. But this time, I was the one controlling the narrative. I was waiting in the lobby, standing near the glass doors. I wasn't sitting. I wasn't leaning. I was standing tall, my weight evenly distributed, my shoulders back, a posture I hadn't held since my 44th birthday. I had ditched the baggy, old man clothes for a fitted polo shirt that actually showed the work I'd put in. My arms were no longer thin and papery, they were solid. When my son's SUV pulled into the lot, I felt a surge of adrenaline. This was the main character moment. He walked through those sliding doors, looking tired, probably mentally preparing himself for another sad visit. He scanned the room, looking for me in the usual chairs. He looked right past me at first. Then, his eyes snapped back. He stopped dead in his tracks. His jaw didn't just drop, it hung there. He actually stumbled back a step, like he'd seen a ghost. But I wasn't a ghost, I was more alive than I'd been in 20 years. "Dad," he whispered. His voice was straight up shaking. What happened to you? Are you okay? Did they change your meds?" I didn't say a word. I just walked toward him. My stride was smooth, powerful, and certain. I didn't reach for his arm for support. Instead, I reached out and gave him a hug that nearly lifted him off the floor. I felt him stiffen in surprise. He hadn't felt strength like that from me since he was a teenager. "I didn't change my meds, son," I said, looking him dead in the eye. "I changed my mind. I decided I wasn't ready to be the man you dropped off here." The pity in his eyes was gone. It had been replaced by pure shock and, for the first time in a long time, genuine respect. We didn't stay in the lobby. I grabbed my jacket and said, "Let's go for a walk." A real one. We spent the next hour walking the perimeter of the facility. In the past, I would have been winded after 50 yards. Now, I was the one setting the pace. He told me about work, about the house, and for once, he wasn't talking at me like I was a child, he was talking to me like a man. He brought my grandson, Leo, the following weekend. When I saw that little boy, I didn't just sit on the bench and wave. I grabbed a soccer ball from the courtyard and ran. I was twisting, turning, and kicking. When I picked Leo up and swung him around, the sound of his laughter was the best music I'd ever heard. My son watched us from the sidelines, and I saw a tear hit his cheek. He realized that the safety he thought he was giving me was actually a slow death sentence. He realized that by letting me get weak, he was losing his father. He pulled me aside as they were leaving. He gripped my hand, not to steady me, but to connect. "Dad," he said, his voice thick. "I made a huge mistake. I thought I was protecting you, but I was actually holding you back. This place, it's not for you. Your room at home. It's exactly how you left it. Come home." That was the win. But the real victory wasn't just the invitation back. It was knowing that I had earned it. I had deleted the burden label and replaced it with leader. I had proven that strength isn't just about muscle, it's about the freedom to be there for the people you love. I'm telling you this story because I know there are millions of you out there who feel like I did on that first day in room 4B. You feel invisible. You feel like your body is a glitch that can't be fixed. You think the world has moved on without you. No cap, that is a lie. Your body is the most advanced piece of technology on the planet, and it is waiting for your command. It doesn't matter if you're 60, 70, or 90, the rebuild button is always there. You just have to have the courage to press it. Don't wait for someone to pack your bags for you. Don't wait for a wake-up call that comes in the form of a hospital bed. Take back your power today. Here is your mission. Comment "Reborn" if you are ready to start your own comeback arc. Let the community know you're in the fight. Share this video with one person who thinks their best years are over. Be the spark that wakes them up. Subscribe to Seasons of Strength. We are building an army of legends who refuse to grow old quietly. If you're ready to take the first step, I've linked the Room 4B Starter Pack video right here. It's the exact movements I used to save my own life when I had nothing but a suitcase and a chair. Your story isn't over. Your strength is your life. Stay strong, stay sovereign, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.